Hello and welcome to another episode of Sports Tales. First and foremost, a very Merry Christmas to everyone who is tuning in wherever you are around the world.
I don't want to see any more Stuttgart players leaving for Bayern Munich or leaving for any team in Germany. I don't want any Stuttgart player leaving for another team in Germany and strengthening their club because it hurts us. By de facto, it hurts us. If we lose a good player to another team, it improves them and it hurts us.
Could this be a reason for you to like Sami Khedira and maybe even Joshua Kimmich, Antonio Rudiger more?
No, Joshua Kimmich, that was our fault. I have to be honest. We didn't give him playing time. That Joshua Kimmich, I don't blame him for leaving because that was our fault. Timo Werner, yeah, I'm open. I don't like Timo Werner because he went to Leipzig and because he left when Stuttgart got relegated. And as a fan, you gave him a lot. As a club, we gave him a lot because he got playing time. He was young. He scored at 17 when he was for Stuttgart and then he went to Leipzig. Of course, it got us 10 million, but I didn't like that. But I do prefer players doing well at Stuttgart and then they can leave. Then they can go to a Real Madrid. Then they can go to a Leeds United even. But I don't understand this selling within the league. I don't understand why it's so common in Germany.
Yeah.
And I do think that hurts the Bundesliga and it only benefits Bayern Munich.
Because we spoke so much about these academy graduates, let's talk about your academy for a moment. Stuttgart's junior team has won the National Under 19 Championships a record 10 times and the Under 17 Bundesliga 6 times, with the likes of Khedira, Werner, Rudiger, Leno, Sebastian Rudi. Also, these are some of the names who have emerged from your academy. But because of whatever reason, like financial rewards or a chance to win trophies, which is not something that Stuttgart can provide, can we say that Stuttgart also has to take some part of the blame because they have simply not done enough to retain the brightest prospects?
Of course, it's our fault
Like
as well.
you already mentioned with the Kimmich example.
Yeah, we ignored Kimmich. Gnabry, he left really early for Arsenal. Rüdiger, he did play a lot for us. He went to Rome. So the thing is, if you have good players on a bad team, those younger players won't improve the team that much. So the problem in the past is you would have some younger players playing, but it didn't make much of a difference because they were too young and they needed an environment where they could succeed. And if you're under constant pressure, because every game is so important, because you need 3 points to survive relegation, there's no way to develop. You have to develop as a younger player. So of course, it's our responsibility as well to provide that environment for the younger players. But there also has to be the younger player who wants to stay at the club. And right now, I feel like not just in Stuttgart, but a lot of younger players are leaving the club really, really early. I don't think that's a very good sign. You see it with Wirtz, for example. He went from Cologne to Leverkusen. You see it.
Havertz.
No, Havertz was from. He's fine because he's a developed player. But you see it with young players. They're leaving their club so early, and I don't think that's a very good sign because the club invests so much in those players. You know, like almost personal for the scout who finds him. It's personal for the youth coach. And it hurts the club because you see those players leaving too early. I don't have a problem with any players leaving at some point, but you should give back something to your club, I think.
Yeah, because also if they want to leave at 22, 24, it is also a possibility for the club making more money and like getting you will never get the full investment of what you have put into the football player since his early age, but you will get some part of the investment in form of money.
If you look at Schalke, for example, look how many players they lost on a free. They lost Leon Goretzka to Bayern on a free. They lost
Joel Matip. Thank you.
Did they lose him on a free?
Yes.
Okay, on a free to Liverpool. They lost Sead Kolasinac, I think, to Arsenal on a free. They lost Meyer to Crystal Palace on a free. They lost Alexander Nübel to Bayern as well on a free. And that hurts the club so much because, Schalke is doing horribly financially now. Look how much money they could have generated. It's like 150 million euros for all those players. only player they got money for was Leroy Sané with 50 million or something. But it hurts the players in the long run so much because you're losing so much money. And I don't know if Schalke is going to survive this year in the Bundesliga just because one. I mean, there are other reasons as well, but one reason is they've lost on so much transfer money.
Since we also spoke about, a little bit about Freiburg, what could we just clear this out? And can we consider Freiburg as your rivals?
No, we cannot.
The Baden-Württemberg rivalry.
Stuttgart has two rivals, I would say. One is Stuttgarter Kickers, which is also from the city of Stuttgart. That derby doesn't really exist anymore because they're in the fifth division now, so it's irrelevant. Like the only derby is when you have the second team from Stuttgart playing them.
Yeah, the last time they played was in '92, and I don't see them playing any time in the near future.
Then
Maybe
you
a
have
friendly.
the biggest one is Karlsruhe, which you have a few years now, unfortunately, in the second division. We've had it last year twice, and then the last time we got relegated, or the time before where we got relegated as well. And that is a big rivalry, and there's big hatred between the fan group. But Freiburg is not that good enough. They've not done very well in the past. They're always in the same position. Sometimes they're the second, sometimes they're in the first. But as a Stuttgart fan, we would say, yeah, we don't really care about them. Freiburg fans tend to dislike us somehow. I don't know why, but apparently they do. The same is with Hoffenheim. They got into money from SAP, from the owner of SAP, got into the first division. But there's no history with the club. Or there's no history of the clubs playing against each other. So a rivalry cannot be created artificially somehow. So I believe that a derby is not just geographical proximity, but also the emotions attached to it. If you take the Berlin derby, for example, that derby has basically no history.
Yeah.
They've played in the second division twice, and last year they played twice. But still, there's a lot of emotion behind it. So if the fans can't hate, I hate to say it that way, but hate the other team, you will not create a rivalry. And if it's one-sided, like for Freiburg and Hoffenheim, for us it will never be a rivalry. Yeah. We feel kind of bad for them because it's so one-sided.
But they've been the football club that's been in the Bundesliga for the last part of the decade, best part of the decade.
Who, Freiburg?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the game, it's a normal game.
Okay.
You know, like when Karlsruhe plays Stuttgart, there are a lot of police, a lot of helicopters in the sky, and fan groups being separated because there's a big fear that if they get close to each other, there's going to be a big fight. There have been many fights between fan groups. With Freiburg, you never read about those. You never read about that stuff.
But they don't want to get close to the Stuttgart fans.
Who, Karlsruhe?
The Freiburg.
I don't know.
Fan base.
Yeah, Freiburg. You know, Freiburg is a sunny city. It's the warmest city I think in Germany. They have good food. They're happy. They don't need to fight. Like they're happy people. So they don't need a rivalry.
Yeah, cool. Do you know something about St. Gallen and the cooperation?
Yeah, there are also some between fan groups. There are some friendships.
Yeah.
For example, Kaiserslautern is probably the closest one. There's also Cottbus, which is in the eastern part of
Saarbrücken.
Yeah, but that's not as relevant. I would say the biggest one is definitely Kaiserslautern. You see it at the games as well, but because a lot of fans travel for those games because they get along. But
these are like just fan base friendships.
Yeah, it's fan bases, and you do have those in Germany. Like the biggest one's probably Schalke and Nuremberg. They're very, very close.
But how do these associations come about? Like, could we call them like ultras friendships or?
Yeah, it's like the fan groups.
And how do they come about it? And why do they do it? Is it because none of their results matter to each other? So then it's like we just form an association because we don't care about what your team's results are, and you not care, but your team's result does not influence us, and our team's result.
No, it doesn't work that way. But I know the one with Cottbus that was created because Stuttgart played Cottbus in one of the cup finals back in the day, and that's I don't know why, but apparently they were friends at the end. Even though Cottbus lost that game, but yeah, I don't know how those probably different for each one. Like By the way, Hertha we don't like as well
Why is that?
because Hertha has the fans of Hertha are friends with the fans of Karlsruhe, and since we hate Karlsruhe, de
Ah,
facto,
the
as a result, we
enemy, the enemy
also
of my enemy is my friend.
yeah.
What do you make of the people who are in the position of management at your football club now?
Generally, I'm satisfied. The president, I wouldn't. Former president had a lot of power. This president doesn't.
Isn't
He's
he?
more.
Didn't he come from like a fan base?
Yeah, he created. Of course, he's also a businessman, but he created like a group which is called Play Fair, which is against some of the things which the modern football stands for, which the over commercialization, the games in China or in Saudi Arabia, which group looks to give fans more power. I don't know how well they're doing because it seems like all the decisions are made not by the fans but by the big clubs and the big associations like UEFA and FIFA.
Yeah.
But he came in, and I think his job is more to give speeches, to look good on camera, to do selfies, and not really give. That's my opinion.
So
I'm
what
not.
what is his job description? This guy just
He's more of a he has more of a representative role. I don't think he has a lot of input into the decisions being made, the big decisions being made.
yeah.
It's more of a keep the club running, do some things that are good for the community, charity events.
How do you compare him to the last president?
I mean, it's completely different because the last president he was out of control, so and he was very power hungry. So I would say it's better now, even though he doesn't do very much. It seems like, but like now, I look at the position of president, and I can say, yeah, it's all right. Back in the day, I was like, we cannot have that person in that position because he made terrible decisions. He was erratic, and he wasted or in part, he was partly responsible for wasting a lot of our money. The way he insulted fans, part somewhat, the way he was a very authoritarian, and the new president tries to be more inclusive, even though he.
And how does the term of presidency go? Like, is the president voted by the members?
Yeah, it's meant voted by the members.
Like, you being a member, do you vote for the president?
If I'm
You are the member.
I have to be there voting because like assembly or yeah, it's held once a year.
So the
where
president
all the
changes
members could assemble. Most of them, of course, do not because it's not that important. But I cannot vote from Berlin, for example. I cannot have a mail-in ballot. But
How long is the presidency term? Is it every year? It
no, it's
happens
4 years.
Yeah, so once every 4 years. All right. What about the other two?
Hitzelsberger and Mislintat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm content. I'm satisfied.
Do they think like all? Do you think all three of them work in harmony?
I do think they feel like I would say Vogt stays out. The president stays out of a lot of those things because I mean he's not an expert in those things. So I think
Yeah.
he knows who he is. He knows his strengths and the direction of the football club, the way they play, or something like that. Of course, he listens. He speaks to them as well to get their input and for them to get his input. But I don't think he's actively involved in the big decisions being made. Hitzelsberger and Mislintat, they're both responsible for that. Then you also have Stefan Heim, who is responsible for the finance aspect. Also Röttgermann, who is more for marketing and stuff. Stefan Heim, he's been at the club for a decade, it seems like. He's been there for a long time. He was there with the previous president. So I'm not a big fan of him because he backed down to the old president. He never said anything. He never complained. And then how are you going to change anything in the club if the same people stay in the club? How are you going to change anything? How are you going to create a culture shift, I would say, where you have the same people maybe believing in anything but not being passionate about it? We still have to see if the old people can actively be passionate about the project and identify with it, or if it's just a regular job. And if it's a regular job, I don't know if we're going to be successful because everyone has to believe in what we're doing. Otherwise, it won't work.
And then finally, to end this podcast on, I want to ask you what is, or rather, two questions. Like, what is your suggestion for the football club on a whole, as a fan and as a member?
You always have to keep the fans happy and give the fans some power because if you have the fans against you, it will never work at Stuttgart. And the last president thought it was a good idea to work against the fans to file a lawsuit against the fans because of
What? Why did he do that?
no, because they were like the ultras protested heavily against the president, and there was some questionable stuff in his opinion, which he then filed a lawsuit for, and the police investigated and couldn't find anything was like a picture. Well, it was a poster with the picture of the president, and then like a target on the president.
Yeah.
And he thought that went called on the murder of him, but of course it didn't mean that.
Yeah.
And like target him because he's the problem. So you have to work with the fans. You have to be successful, of course. That's the biggest thing. If you're successful, that'll make a lot of things easier. But the thing is, right now, Hitzelsberger, he's loved by the fans. He's loved by the fan base because he's very humble. And the old president, he was arrogant. He was ignorant. So you have to find a middle ground between success and also, or you have to combine success with charisma, I would say. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest, because that will,
You need to find that balance.
yeah, that'll keep the fans involved.
With all this mischief that your last president was up to, did he leave at the end of his term, or was there some extraordinary circumstances that made him resign or leave the post before his term came to an end?
So the thing is, it was the end of the season 2019. Stuttgart got relegated after many fans believed they would be in contention for the Europa League. And as the season started to close, a lot of fans started to protest against the president because there was complete chaos at the club. We had a lot of different coaches during the season. We had two sporting directors during the season. So a lot of, especially the ultra groups, protested against the president. And thing is, you can remove a sitting president, if you get 75% of the vote of the participating members at the assembly. That's very, very, very hard to do. So at the end of the season, we had the members assembly in the stadium, but the voting should have been done digitally online.
This was even before pre-corona, yeah.
Yeah. Every single fan who goes to the Stuttgart stadium knows the connection isn't that great at the stadium. Like, if you want to check the other scores or something during the game, you have a hard time. Hardly because there are a lot of people in the fans, but I've been to other stadiums where it's not a problem. Anyway, during that assembly, the Wi-Fi didn't work. No Wi-Fi means no voting because there's no replacement option. They didn't take that into account.
You had to vote during the game, or you had to
No,
vote
that
in
was
the
after the
stadium?
season. After the season, of
Okay.
course. But so they tried and tried again. Sometimes it worked for a few people, and some people left, especially older people. Of course, you would say older people are more inclined to vote for the person who's there. You would say, yeah, he's not doing that bad of a job. Blah blah blah. So people got restless, and people started screaming. People started insulting, and then the whole assembly got out of control because there were speakers, and then they were actively calling out the president, and one after another were actively calling out the president, and each one was followed by bigger cheers and bigger applause because the pro-president faction started to disappear, and you could say at the end it would have been very, very, very close to him having to being forced out of office and having 75% of the members voting against him, but the Wi-Fi didn't work. So after I think it was like 4 or 5 hours, they said, "Well, it's enough now. It's not going to work." So he said the president, who's in charge of the whole assembly of conducting it, so he's technically responsible for having functioning Wi-Fi. So he said, "We're going to have to reschedule." So went back into the stadium,
Into the meeting room?
Yeah, into the meeting room, and people were screaming at him, people were insulting him, and people were throwing stuff at him as well. So people thought, well, we're going to vote again in a few weeks when this all passes over. But then the next day, in the morning, yeah, the president had a Facebook page which he made just for his presidency. Posted that he's going to resign, that he can't work with people like that who are unable to have a functioning Wi-Fi at an assembly. So he tore everyone down with him, and he left. Like, there wasn't any speech. It was just a Facebook post that he's going to resign from office because he couldn't deal with the level of incompetence at the club.
Basically, because the internet was not working, he decided to quit.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi wasn't working. Of course, there was someone who was in charge of the whole voting system. And then the club sued that company and should have been heard at court. But now the company is bankrupt because of COVID-19. So I don't know if anything's going to ever happen to that. But it was basically a back and forth, the club blaming the company blaming the club. there were a few months of uncertainty, so the vice president took over. But I mean, a club isn't that hard to manage, it seems like, because nothing changed basically. So it was just the president leaving, like,
Nothing happened. Okay, this is one of the most fascinating presidential exits that I have come to know, and it seems really funny that even after him targeting all the fans and calling them names and being against them, he was the one to leave very quietly and just by a Facebook post. And that too, one of the deciding factors for him to leave the club was the internet was not working. But do you think anyway the fans would have voted him out if the internet connection was on?
I think they would have voted him out actually.
But what was his
It,
motivation to leave anyway the next morning? Wouldn't he want to be in that post longer?
people thought he was going to resign after they got relegated because that's what people do. If you
Yeah.
fail, you resign. But he said, no, it's not my fault entirely. And look, I all because he was the person who put Hitzelsberger in his position. So he would say, yeah, look what I did, and it's not my fault. And then you would have some of the press, some of the journalists, which were close to him, having some articles which went against the ultras, which were like, if he's voted out of office, there's going to be complete chaos, like you see on TV as well, or in newspapers, which Trump said as well. If he's left out, it's going to be complete chaos and Tifa running the country and all that blah blah. I think if you would have every single member voting, he would definitely not been voted out. But people who go to those assemblies are passionate about something, and it's the ultras who are more passionate than like me as a regular fan about the club. So they go to those, and if you're passionate about something, yeah, you stay for 5 or 6 hours or how long it lasted. But if you're like, yeah, whatever, it's not that important.
It's just one
I have to
election.
cook, I have to do something afterwards. I've other stuff to do. You will leave, and you had that situation where you had a lot of people at the end who were very against the president, and I do believe it would have been very, very close. They would have gotten very, very close to 75. I don't know if they would have gotten over it, but they would have been close. And I believe even if they only gotten 74, he gotta resign after that, right? I mean, we never came to that because the Wi-Fi didn't work. But and he resigned with his stupid Facebook post. But yeah, he was very unpopular at the club, and I do think it's very good that there's now some tranquility. Right now, it's especially difficult during COVID times because no fans are allowed in the stadium. So we'll see what happens when fans are let back in, or all fans are being let back in.
Uh-huh.
If the passion for the club will remain the same, or if it's going to change because people will say, well, it's been a year without football and I didn't miss much. I don't know how it is because football, as you can see right now, they have a special role right now in the world. Nations League is going on, Champions League is going on. You have qualifying in South America. You have all the national leagues playing, while you and I cannot play on this. You and I cannot play on a football field. So it's gonna be. We'll see what happens afterwards because people will remember. I think that football fans, no football players, they kept on playing, but we had to make sacrifices. And then
Yeah.
you have like multiple COVID cases on a team, and the team still plays. Like the Ukraine played Germany. Ukraine played Germany, even though they had multiple COVID cases. And then they said, oh, they isolated before they didn't have any contact. Now we have more cases with Ukraine. I think it's very hard for the fan to understand why football has such a special role right now, and you have to take that into account as a club as well, because you have when it's all done, you have to make the fans passionate again and make the fans emotional about the club. And I don't know if it's gonna be easy like that as it was in the past because people somehow survived without for 1 year without it or more even. I don't know how long it's gonna last.
Yeah, no, we don't know about that. That's the only unknown, but we can only hope for us to go back to the stadiums and watch the game. But again, are we going to be loving the game the same way we did? Because there's so much to consume at the moment. But we can hope for the best. I hope there are only better days and light at the end of the tunnel for your football club. I'm wishing them all the best.
We've been hoping that for a long time now.
It's 2020. There's
And
the end
the
of
worst
the
is
dawn.
behind us now, right?
Yeah. It can only get better from here. So, on that note, I would like to say thank you to you, Len. Thank you again for joining us on this podcast and showering us with all these fascinating stories, which I never would have thought I would come to know, and hope you got a good insight, a very clear insight of what he has to share with his experience being a Stuttgart fan and also a member. If you like what we do, you can follow us on Instagram under the handle of Sports Tales. Check us out on our weekly show, which will be out every Wednesday. And until then, stay healthy, stay awesome. Yeah, so long.